taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week.
This is Augmented Reality,
Presented by the Triple S League.
Mass Effect Legendary Edition has been confirmed. That's the news that EA was teasing us about for N7 Day. So I'll be updating the title to the podcast shortly after we're done our show here today. Also, we know one of the names behind the Cyberpunk 2077 Multiplayer Edition, which will be coming out at some point in the future. This is the Augmented Reality Podcast. Welcome, everybody, to your source for news, leaks, and insights about games in the gaming industry. For November 7th, good old N7 Day. It's the Saturday edition of the show. My name is Ash, here as always with Cybsidian and with Moontag. So welcome, folks. Good to have you with us, and hello to everybody who is active in the live chat. If you are listening live this morning, please do say hello in the live chat. Send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll get to as many as we can throughout the podcast. Yeah, just two major stories to discuss today. It's been a slower news week, but there's a lot of other general world news going on that I think is kind of trumping everything else. Sorry, that literally no pun intended there. That was not intentional. I promise you that one was not intentional. How you doing this morning, Cyb?
Good. It's it's been an interesting news week here. So
yeah,
we've got some golden details. I've got some golden details on Cyberpunk 2077's multiplayer mode that is going to excite you.
All right, that sounds good. I'm looking forward to that. Mootag, how are you doing this morning? If you've managed to be able to unmute yourself, because you always are busy right at the beginning of the show doing social media posts. How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah. Got
Awesome.
to chat some new toys.
Yeah.
And they seem more interested in the box, of course, so, as it goes.
We're big pet people on this show, if you can't tell. We all have animals around us all the time, and sometimes you hear them in the background. All right, everybody. So, Cyb, you wanna talk Cyberpunk first, or should we talk about this Mass Effect?
Well, the Mass Effect news is breaking, so let's talk about that first.
All right. So, yesterday it was teased that we were going to get some info today that was going to drop about an hour ago, and of course it did, about, some big Mass Effect news for N7 Day. Turns out it's the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, the Mass Effect Original Trilogy remasters that almost everyone was fairly certain was coming. And so the question I have for Cyb is who the heck's been working on it? Because that was one of your points of skepticism, was like, who is working on this? Because Mass Effect Edmonton is working on the new Dragon Age for, to a large extent. And then I can't remember what you said.
And they're behind on that game. This was supposed to be a launch title. Years and years and years ago, this was supposed to correlate with the launch of the consoles. And right now, we have no idea where it is. Now, it went through, rumor has it went through a major reset. This was before Anthem came out. This is a long time ago. The Dragon Age Inquisition was supposed to come up, not Inquisition. After Dragon Age Inquisition, the next game was keyed up, and they were going to create far more roleplay stuff and mechanics to it. You would be able to go on a mission that would be kind of be built each time uniquely, with lots of changing variables every time you do the mission. So even when you're doing when you got two people doing the same game and they're playing through the same stuff, each mission is slightly different than the other one. There's some pathways that are open or closed. There's some options that are open or closed. And then this compounds even more on top of the team that you've built. If you're breaking into a vault with one of the examples that was given on paper, and I believe this was talked about in some several other leaks. So I kind of know it more or less to be true. You had your job, it was kind of like a heist thing. And you could show up with a team full of warriors and battle mages, run in and just start destroying everything, fighting the guards, blowing things up, literally like breaking the vault open, stealing the thing, and then escaping through just like this insurmountable fight of like chaos and stuff going on. You could get a team of courtesans, bards, silver-tongued people, mages that specialized in subtlety and deception, and they could walk in and you could role play, talk yourself through all of the guards, basically get into the vault posing as some rich new clientele, swap the thing that you were going for, and then walk out with nobody being the wiser. This was the depth of difference. If you wanted to stealth in and steal it, you could do that too. If you wanted to create a temporal portal and basically beam inside, by going through the oh dear, I've forgotten the name of the what's the the magical plane that is in the Dragon Age universe. It's like full of demons and stuff, and it's very, very dangerous to go there. But that place, you use that place as kind of like this like way to like move yourself to the vault. You come out of it, you've got some demons and stuff to take care of or sneak past or whatever. You steal the thing and then you teleport out. Hundreds of different ways to approach every single mission. You could customize your group, your people, your main companions, your secondary companions.
All right.
You could adjust them, you could rotate them, you could control so much stuff. Am I here?
Sorry about that audio glitch there. For a moment you just
okay. All right, so I'm good now though, right?
You're good now. So this is
okay,
this was their goal for the new Dragon Age.
Yes, and the idiot that was behind approving the Anthem game in the way that it came out, that complete waste of mental capacity in every sense of the word. He basically stood there and said, guys, this isn't good, and it's not going to make us money. What we want is something that like plays like Fortnite, and it's just like a quick, drop in and just microtransactions and multiplayer everywhere. Make it all about microtransactions and multiplayer. We're doing this game called Anthem, and it's going to be great, guys. It's all about like, it's a looter shooter, and you're just going to be like, we're going to be making money like crazy. We're going to be printing money because it's like, it's so much microtransactions, and you want to customize your rig. Well, you're screwed unless you're dropping like $80 on it, every month. And we're gonna have $70 skin colors, not $70 skins. Those are gonna be like $200, but we're gonna have skins in the game, just a texture color that's gonna color like 10% of your armor that you're gonna buy for $50, and we're gonna bleed them through the nose. It's gonna be great, guys. Do that. So they scrapped that whole thing, and then tried it again, and so that's where they're at now. So, because that's just such a brilliant idea of marketing. And so now they have a little bit more control over their game. The failure of Anthem, the failure of Andromeda, basically, this guy was forced to leave. He started up his own company, by the way. Don't ever buy a game from that absolute waste of intellectual space. Ever, please, just for the love of God, never, ever, ever, ever buy a game by these ex-developers. They are not developers, ex-corporate types.
All right.
Garbage people. It's the same guy who made the brilliant decision around, that Battlefield game that was just absolutely, had no correlation in actual history whatsoever. And again, as I said multiple times, I wasn't against them coming up with like an alternate world. They had, in fact, they're sitting on the IP of Command and Conquer. They could have, which is people fans of Command and Conquer know that it's basically predicate on the universe of our universe, the normal prime timeline changing completely, and World War II typically not happening or happening completely differently, and then it creates this time ripple that creates these time type crystals that can be used for energy and Tiberium stuff, and it's all crazy. And they could have taken that and they could have like incorporated the two and created a universe where like World War II was completely different with like just like you had like you had steam steampunk style good lord,
Yeah,
English.
steampunk style things, and
But
cybernetic
like
limbs,
cybernetic limbs and
steampunk
all that kind of
limbs.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they could have done that, and actually had a reason for it. Instead, they were like, "No, guys, this is what really actually happened," and it's like, "No, that didn't actually happen that way. You
well,
absolute garbage human being."
It's really arrogant.
It's yes, exactly, 100%. It's just arrogance at its peak. So that guy's gone from EA, and a lot of his bad decisions have now left the company. And oh yes, they almost went bankrupt, so there was that thing. So basically, now they're like, okay, guys, we need to actually make some money here. We actually
hmm.
need to do so. Yeah, what are we going to do? And so this is basically kind of what it's boiled down to. Essentially, is this new take on this game, whatever it is. It's not what was number one. It's not what was the second iteration. So now we're at the third iteration, basically, of what they're trying to do, which is built off of the second type iteration.
Yes. If you're
So
just
it's gonna
tuning
be
in, if you're just tuning in, by the way, we've got Mass Effect on the screen, but currently we're talking about Dragon Age because
yeah.
that's
So we're talking about the lead up to it. So the question that I still have is who is behind this project, because we still don't know who is behind this project. The Edmonton studio, which is all the talk that we just had about Dragon Age, all of that stuff has been going on there. They don't have the time. They don't have the time. They don't have the energy. They don't have the staff because they've been in a staff crisis crunch for the past few months. Two separate studios have sprung up and are constantly leeching and headhunting people from the Edmonton office. You've got a whole bunch of people. This, by the way, ties into our second story about Cyberpunk, and Rick, it's gonna be a juicy one. So we've got Archetype Entertainment, which is a bunch of ex-Bioware devs. A bunch of people from Fogbank have found new homes in a couple new studios, and they're again leeching more people from Bioware. So who's making this? We don't know. We have no idea.
I don't know. It according to the blog post from Casey Hudson,
Mm-hmm.
VP and Studio GM of BioWare. It just says our team at BioWare has been hard at work updating the textures, shaders, models, effects, and technical features of 3 enormous games.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not remaking or reimagining the original games, but they're modernizing the experience of the originals.
Yeah. So let me tell you now what we're going to get with Mass Effect Ultimate Edition. We're going to get a game that has been upgraded from 10-year-old graphics to 8-year-old graphics. And I'm not joking. Congratulations, guys. This is one of the biggest wastes of time. Don't buy this. Flat out, right now, you are going to be disappointed. You are going to be horrified. This is going to be good for people who never really played the first 2 games and who kind of want to play a full, unique experience. But remember what I said a couple weeks ago, that even if this thing existed, it's going to be garbage. And that is exactly this is exactly what we're looking at. We're looking at a pile of garbage. What have they done? Have they upgraded or changed areas? No. Have they upgraded or changed combat to make it to give you more depth than the previous games? No, they haven't done any of that. All of the same, essentially the same mechanics. There's the most gameplay change is going to happen in the first game that had really terrible controls and wasn't really that great of a game gameplay wise, as far as actual combat. It's great storytelling and whatnot, but it's going to be just more of the same stuff. Mass Effect 1 had a limited experience gain system. There was a set amount of enemies in the entire game, meaning that if you did all of the content in a particular order, you could get a certain amount of experience points, and then that was it. Period. You could not get any more experience before going on to the final boss. You could not farm any more stuff. You could not gain any more credits. There was a limited number of stuff you could do. Period. You could not you could not grind the game. As far as we know, that hasn't been changed. Go ahead.
And also, thank you to Polly's for the super chat. Nobody asked Mass Effect Trilogy remastered, and nobody asked Need for Speed Hot Pursuit remastered. Why are they making this? Who the F is going to play this? Those are very good questions.
I don't know. I mean, are they banking on nostalgia? I do feel like the original Mass Effect could use an upgrade, but the second two, I mean, considering they, like you said, they're updating it from roughly 10-year-old graphics to 8-year-old graphics. I mean, that's not just hyperbole. It is, I mean, these are going to be released for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
7-year-old consoles.
Yes.
So let's say 7 years old, and maybe they find some optimizations to make it slightly better. But I mean, we're still talking current gen, which is very, very soon going to be last gen. Now they're promising forward compatibility and targeted enhancements on the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. This is not a next generation remaster. This is for current gen, which is basically over as of like a few days from now.
Mm-hmm.
The new consoles come out. By the way, gonna plug our video that's coming out on Monday morning. Watch for that. I released a teaser for it yesterday. We have a fun video coming out to celebrate the console launches. The console war is coming to the streets to be settled with lyrical poetry set to a beat. And that's all I'll say about that. Watch for the premiere Monday morning. All right. Anyway, continue, please.
So as Ash said, this game is designed and built for the oldest of the current gen technology. It's designed to run on that. It's designed to run within that space, within that confines of that thing, of that console. So we're talking about technology that cannot go any more past a certain point of return, basically. And that's
well, that's what gets me, is that like in 2 years this is already going to be way out of date. Based on the targeted the consoles they're targeting. They're targeting the current gen I'm amazed they're not targeting next gen consoles with this. What on earth was the rationale behind that decision? Did we lose?
Sorry, Sid.
Did we lose Cyb? We're having a...
No, I'm still here.
I apologize, everybody. Something's going on with our connection to Cyb today. I don't know. We'll have to get.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I mean, I keep getting interrupted, so it's like, am I dropping out or what's going on?
Yeah, you're dropping out, and then we're not hearing you, and then we start talking. So apologize for that, everybody. One of the hazards of doing a live show. Don't know what's going on with the connection. Hopefully it clears up. I also saw just recently there was a YouTube hiccup. Everything's green on my end, so I don't know what's going on with the internet today. But all right, we'll just carry on.
Okay, so yeah, this game is built for the wrong. It's built for the wrong generation, basically. It's built for a bunch of technology that is essentially becoming obsolete and will be effectively obsolete when it releases. And in the post themselves, they've stated that they have future plans and future proofing for the next generation of consoles. So again, we're not getting any revamped areas within the game. We're not getting anything new. We're just getting what I said before. We're getting a texture upgrade. A texture upgrade and some combat tweaks to the original game. Do not buy this. This is they're going to charge you full price for this game. It's going to be $60, $80, even $100. They're probably going to have some stupid collector's edition where it's going to come out at like $150, $200. Do not buy this. This is going to be basically the same game with the amount of graphical upgrades that went from Mass Effect 3 to Mass Effect Andromeda. And if you remember, that was basically nothing.
All right.
Basically nothing. It's not going to have any new lighting technology. It's not going to be coming with ray tracing. There's nothing new to the actual core of this engine. This is an absolute and total disgrace for a company that should have prided itself on actually making good content, and is now just reliving it's like that guy who's the high school quarterback, and he talks about how, how awesome his game was and the championship that he won, and how awesome that was when he's 39 years old. He's still talking about his glory days when he was 18. This is what we are dealing with. This is what we're dealing with BioWare. This is what BioWare has become. Casey, I kind of had some general hope that he could basically like renew things and pull things back, but it's clear to me now that he doesn't have the structure of leads at that company to actually do any of this stuff that he wants to do. Because this is just a, hey guys, we improved the skin and some animations and some like flashy, graphical stuff, but it's garbage. It's absolute and total garbage. And it's you should be done with this as a company at this point. We basically give this company another role when the next Dragon Age comes out, very, very cautiously. But what we're getting here is like the only thing that this is really going to add to your library is for you to have the entire game hopefully on Steam. Hopefully they're not going to go Epic exclusive, but you're going to be able to have the whole trilogy experience on your Steam on your Steam library.
Yeah,
is that worth it?
For people who haven't played Mass Effect before, that may this might be worth it for them. But
yeah,
if you want to, make your own decisions, of course. But it doesn't seem like, unless it's like a very, very reasonable price, which I doubt, because we're talking about EA here. It's gonna be an overpriced, huge, collector's edition. I mean, you are getting 3 games. We don't know what it's going to cost yet, but I imagine it's going to be up there. And Mattheodric says, don't forget that the pre-order bonus skins and all that crap. Yes, indeed. Spazmuffin says, let's not screw around with what this edition is going to be. It's an attempt to see if Mass Effect is worth returning dev time to, not a proper release. I mean, could very well be. Although he does say in the post that Casey made today, he says, meanwhile, here at BioWare, a veteran team has been working hard envisioning the next chapter of the Mass Effect universe. We're in the early stages of the project and can't say more just yet, but we're looking forward to sharing our vision for where we'll be going next. Now, early stages, so it's in previs, basically. So perhaps they are testing the waters to see. And, if this doesn't sell well, maybe they'll can or revamp what they have in mind for the next game. It's really hard to say. But I guess I have 2 major questions. So, do you think, Cyb, that they will fix the issues with the endings for Mass Effect 3? Would they at least do that much? And also, I should say, what about what's going to follow for the Mass Effect universe? Do you think this next project they're working on is going to be something worthwhile?
At the moment, I really doubt it. It seems like they're biting off more than they can chew. I mean, it really kind of like is screaming that they've bitten off more than they can chew, because again, they have a staffing crunch, they have a manpower shortage, they have. Remember when we were talking about, is EA even going to like continue the Edmonton studio? Are they going to close it down? And one of the big things was like, well, they spent all this money on a brand new office building. They got the biggest tower in Edmonton, and they've completely kitted it out. Multiple floors are completely Bioware's. It's great. It's wonderful. They've got so much new advanced tech there. They've got fiber, connections that allow them to do so much more, like online, streaming, like streaming data during development process, which is an issue, of course. Not like streaming, like not like Twitch streaming, but like streaming, data packs and stuff like that within the company and to other parts of the company. They've gotten all this hardware improvement, tech improvement. Well, I can tell you that basically most of that place is empty right now. So, yeah, I mean, how's it going? It's going terribly. The whole process of the studios is falling apart more and more every single day, and it's becoming, at this point, it's becoming a bit of a joke. And it's going to be a sad joke and it's going to be a sad joke for the industry when they manage to come out and they manage to make, like, a couple $100 million off of this just by offering the same garbage, that I'm not the but the original game's not garbage. The original two, especially the first two games, are really, really great. But they're just going to basically offer that, and that's like, and people are going to shovel money into their face. It's ridiculous and sad, and it's not going to help the company make more stuff. It's just going to pad the bottom line of the EA executives. This money isn't going to go into making the third game. It's going to they're going to continue to have this staffing shortage. This, like, they've had a massive brain drain at that company. I said this about a year ago. I was talking with a dev there, and I said, yeah, so what do you know about what are your thoughts about, like, your team and your brain drain issues? How is that going over? We were talking about some of the older devs, and I mentioned one of the core devs behind Mass Effect 1 and one of the core devs behind their success with Dragon Age, the first one. And then I mentioned the doctors, the people who founded the dang studio. And the guy looked at me and said, "Who are they?" He didn't even know who founded the studio. So this is the culture that we have here now. It's a culture filled with arrogance, stupidity. It'll all come together at the end. It'll be a product worth buying, when this is nothing but a pile of hot garbage at this point. And don't expect to get this. Like, don't buy this. Don't buy this. It's going. Don't buy this. Please don't buy this.
I really enjoy Matthew Drake. I'm not sure if I said that right, but this is what happens when you have diversity quotas and let SJWs into your company.
Ooh, spicy. I don't know that directly relates, but
well, it's the attitude of my rights, my way, or highway. That's the attitude I see from that whole culture there, that I see spreading out into lots of places. It's on several levels of society right now. It's disgusting.
Mm-hmm. So Sword Sister also says, you guys thought Shepard died for Andromeda, huh? There are fates worse than death. Indeed.
Yeah. So, I mean, just overall, I think we can look at this as essentially a failed product, right at launch. It's going to be shiny. It's going to give you the original, it's going to allow you to play through the original trilogy just fine. But I got to say, the timing on this, really poor. Really poor, guys. Really poor. You've just started working on the next Mass Effect game. And the wording that they used, essentially, and this basically confirms what I've been able to dig up, they're in pre-planning for it. Which means that they don't have an engine yet. And horrifying of horrifying truths. If they have an engine, it's probably that dang Frostbite again. So again, we have very little to no ray tracing. We have very little to no next-gen technology. We have very little to no pillar technology in this engine that is capable of doing anything other than a fancy shooter.
Man.
Moon, you want to get that super chat?
Yes. Thank you again, Polly's, for the super chat. FIFA, Madden, NFL, NBA Live, NHL, and UFC series made EA convinced that it don't matter what garbage they make. Idiots will buy Mass Effect anyways. Oh, it's cutting. There is that percentage of people who are just go for it. Which,
Well, I
if
think
if I like the game enough, I would probably go for it. But I'm like, I don't know about this.
I do think that it will sell well.
Probably for
I
like we said, the nostalgia bank, right?
Yeah.
Nostalgia always sells, and that's not always a bad thing. But
No.
then when we get Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker and Mass Effect
Mm-hmm.
Andromeda's, well, that's not a good thing. Nostalgia's fine, but you gotta create a good story. You gotta create a good product. On top of that, nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
Notional says, I just don't get why the Frostbite engine team still doesn't have a dedicated RPG group to build functionality for RPGs in Frostbite. Very good. I mean, good question. I don't know. I mean, I imagine they have built some tools for that engine that are catered toward RPG development because they are trying to do so many RPGs in it. But yeah, I don't know. Very good question. Or why they don't just use a different engine that's better for it. Like, that's better for that kind of aspect. Like, Frostbite was, like Cyb said, and we've talked about many times before, Frostbite's good at a specific thing, and outside of that, it's a real struggle and a real pain to work with. To develop is one of the reasons why not Andromeda, but possibly Andromeda, but Anthem's development time was so bloated. I mean, they had to work with this engine that was not designed to build what they were trying to build in that game. On top of many, many other problems. All right. Spazmuffin says, question to you all. With the exception of CDPR, are there any devs, publishers in the industry that aren't money-grubbing asshats? Well, I mean, that's a very good question because all companies are trying to make money, obviously. And CDPR is getting some criticism for all of the marketing and product licensing deals that they're doing. Like that, there's insane. I saw one headline that said, if it exists, you can probably buy a Cyberpunk 2077 themed version of it. I mean, it's starting to look that way now. I don't really have a problem with that. It is kind of, I mean, there's an interesting juxtaposition considering that the Cyberpunk in general is sort of a criticism of extreme capitalism, or what I would call corporatism, where corporations get way too much power, and it's all about, like, literally the world is run by greedy corporations, and we're starting to see that bit by bit today. Yeah, I think that the answer is both yes and no. Publishers are always going to try to make money. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to put out good products. That doesn't mean that they don't care about the product necessarily, but we do see a lot of these big corporate publishers, e.g. ZeniMax, which it's not about the games. It's run by a bunch of lawyers trying to make money. And if it means sacrificing the artistry and integrity of the actual games themselves, well, they're okay with that. Now, developers also want to make money, and that's fine. I mean, they should, if they work hard, make a good product, they should, in my opinion, get a fair payday for that. Developers, on the developer side, it definitely seems more like, there's I don't think you get into game development with dollar signs in your eyes. Like, it's a tough, especially if you're making your own indie project, starting from the ground up. It's a tough thing to break into.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a certain number of projects that just are not going to go anywhere. But so for smaller developers, it's definitely more about the artistry. I think even for larger developers, the individual sorry, I should be more precise with my words. For larger development companies, the individual devs working for those companies, I think, I don't think you go into that for the money. Like, I don't think it's the most lucrative industry. I think you go into it because you love what you're doing.
You want to create something that you hope will reach people in a way.
But I think you'll get it in any artistic industry. You'll get those individuals and companies who just want to corporatize everything. And that's kind of just the way it goes. But we do have infrastructure in place now with things like Kickstarter and, direct funding, direct support of artists via the internet, that there's a lot of opportunities for smaller artists and developers that, there's more opportunities. There's stuff that just did not exist 10, 20 years ago. But I think as long as corporations exist, you're always going to get those greedy ones that they don't care about the quality or integrity of the product. They just want to squeeze you for as much money as they can, and then retire to their private island in their yacht, whatever. Okay. Anything more on Mass Effect?
No, not directly. Yeah, don't buy the game. It's not going to be worth it.
All right. Then we will.
I can't believe they would try to upgrade a 10, 12-year-old graphical system to an 8-year-old graphical system and try and charge money for it. It's ridiculous.
No, I would seriously.
I guarantee you, we will not see them do what Bethesda did. When Bethesda came up with the special edition, they said anybody who owns this game gets a free upgrade to the special edition. You can download it for free. Your Steam library will automatically add it to your system. And that was true for me. There was some bugs and some people had to, send in a ticket, but for the most part, I had the experience that the vast majority of people had, and that was when they made that announcement. 2 hours later, I looked at my Steam library, and it was already in the library. It was already right there going, hey, it's here. It's free. Download it. Work with it. Whatever you want.
Right.
Yeah. And it was perfect. It was great. And I loved it. This is not what we have here. This is not what we have. We don't have a company who's going, hey, guys, look, we're looking to make this real for you, make this really good. We really want this to happen. It's going to be great. No, we don't have that. We have this greedy corporate greed going, yeah, you're going to pay for this because you don't own it on that version of PC. You have to own it on Origin for you to get a free copy of it. And even then, I doubt that they'll do that. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I doubt. They're not going to give this away for free.
No.
To anybody. Okay. All right.
So once again, EA reminds us that it is in fact the worst gaming company in existence. Period. And that's hard to pull off because there's a couple of gaming companies that are run by states that are currently in the process of committing human rights violations. So, that's really hard to pull off. It's really hard to pull off, but somehow they managed to do it. So kudos to you, EA. Your greed and level of depravity truly knows no bounds.
All right. You are listening to the Augmented Reality Podcast. We love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S community members. They call themselves the Triple S Legion. About all the things we love to talk about. Stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join. Say hi to us at the welcome channel. Cyb and Moontag often hang out in one of the voice rooms right after the podcast. I don't, only because I have family stuff I usually need to get to right as soon as we're done. But yeah, you can hang out and chat with them there. And by the way, if you are hungering for some Mass Effect nostalgia, There's some stuff going on for N7 Day around the internet, including starting in about an hour and 20 minutes, which should be, I don't know, roughly half hour to 45 minutes after this podcast ends. There is a Mass Effect voice actor reunion happening that's being live streamed on YouTube and possibly other places as well. So you can check that out if you like. Somebody posted a link to that on our Discord server earlier. All right, so on to Cyberpunk stuff. Let's get the graphic up here. So we have some info about the Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer. Cyb has some insights he's going to get into there. First, just another interesting little tidbit. There's been another game delayed because of the Cyberpunk 2077 delayed. The Medium, the new game from Bloober Team, was scheduled to be released on December 10th, which is the current release date for Cyberpunk 2077. They say, the Bloober Team says, it wasn't an easy choice to make, but one made due to the COVID-19 situation in Poland, and as well as the current schedule of other games on the market. Well, we all know who they're talking about. That exact day is when Cyberpunk 2077 is supposed to be coming out, and any dev or publisher with any brains is not going to release anything that day. All right. So yeah, just another game delayed because of Cyberpunk. This thing's a juggernaut. Everyone's moving out of its way. All right, but as far as the Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer, this has largely been a mysterious project. Now, to reiterate, we've discussed this before, but just to refresh everybody's memory, or if you're not familiar, this is going to be a separate game. This is not going to be a mode or something added in to Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be a standalone single-player title. The multiplayer is going to be its own game that's going to come out sometime down the road. Exactly when, we don't know, but we do know one of the names behind it now, Gabe Amatangelo, or Amatangelo, probably Amatangelo. I may be pronouncing that wrong. Maybe a somewhat familiar name to some of you. He worked on the MMORPG Star Wars The Old Republic. He was a PvP designer for that game. He worked on Dragon Age Inquisition DLC. Some other stuff that you're probably familiar with. And now he is a creative director on the Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer project. And Cyb, you have some stuff to say about this.
Yeah, so you kind of breezed over it, but we cannot emphasize how important this guy was to all of the successful creative parts of some of these games. Especially, I know SWTOR kind of didn't take off the way that a lot of people wanted it to, but the absolute best bits of SWTOR, the parts of the game that made the game great, as great as it could possibly have been. And again, we enter the scenario where this is the brain drain that happened. This is the so SWTOR is this MMO that is based in the old Republic universe, same as the KOTOR games. Now, some people didn't like the writing, the story. This guy didn't have anything to do with that part of it, like not with the story direction and whatnot. So if you didn't like that, don't worry, not the guy to blame for that. He was the guy who came up with the way to implement flashpoints operations, war zones, and the PvP system. So there's a couple of ways that this was groundbreaking. For one of the problems that you have in MMOs is you have faction imbalance. And what's faction imbalance? Well, say there's 2,000 players playing side A, and there's 8,000 players playing side B on a server. This creates massive problems for PvP because you've got 100, 200 people lined up for PvP on side B, and you've got 10 people lined up for PvP on side A. And you just don't end up getting constant PvP. If you're on side B, you're waiting. On side A, typically what happens is if those people are actually actively interested in actually playing and continuing, those 10 to 20 players that are working there are having match after match after match, just constant instant queuing. And they're fighting a bunch of people who are only fighting them once every like 30, 40 minutes tops. Usually 2 to 3 hours is the typical wait time. I played through Vanilla WoW. I remember this very, very specifically. This is why I ended up playing Alliance, is a big contributor to this, because what you ended up having on the Horde side is there were a lot more people who were actively interested in PvP, and they would PvP a ton. Now, on some servers this was reversed, but this is what happened on the server that I was on. We were always outnumbered, and we were always when it came to PvP. The economy side of it, we had a pretty healthy economy because there was a lot of players who didn't actively participate in PvP, but because we were participating in PvP, we would go from queue to queue to queue to queue, which means that I would sit down in an evening and play PvP constantly, having a wide variety of competitors and learning how to like play my skills against them, who would normally dominate in the open world, thus giving them an advantage when it came to smaller encounters. But because I had the ability to play more consistently than they did in an actual fair environment, I became a much, much, much better PvPer than the average player. So did my other compatriots that we were playing with there. And so when it came to our small team, you know, playing against these other players, we became, excellent players because we had the ability to practice constantly against a wide variety of opponents versus the other people who would wait 2 to 3 hours to play a single round, right? So when you're playing constantly, when you're constantly having the ability to constantly improve yourself, and you're constantly checking yourself to see how you can improve yourself even more and more and more, and you're getting more experience in, instead of playing, so we were essentially playing like 10 practice matches to everybody else's one practice match.
Yeah.
And so whenever you have a team that does that, you're going to excel. So Gabe came up with a way to fix this within the confines of an MMO universe where you have servers, and you are trying to balance players into this. And he created this game called Hutball, which took all of the players who were lined up for a queue and would just put them into a game. And it would mix their sides up so that you were playing against a lot of your same faction, and you were now playing with some members of the opposite faction. So if you had 10 Republic players and 50 Sith players, that they would just throw those 10 Alliance players in, or Republic players in, with the 50 Sith, and you suddenly have the ability to host three games at the same time instead of waiting on a single queue. So really brilliant system there. Flashpoints, really brilliant. Adding role play to a flashpoint, adding a way to have story in a flashpoint, have players vote on what path they wanted to take, while maintaining the heart of your choices. Really stepped up and gave an advanced system of like what you could expect in a tabletop D&D experience into an MMO. Now the problem with that is that they never ever EA, is useless and disgusting as they are, they were never able to expand on this. They never chose to expand on this. Meaning that you play the game now today, you have the same dungeons with the same choices that you had when the game originally launched some like 10, 12 years ago. So again, you have this scenario where EA is just like, they get a good idea and they by one person, and then that person moves on, and then they never ever have the ability to like advance that concept, which is why a lot of their games are the exact same game. Like all the sports games are basically the exact same game, just with a new coat of paint on it every year, and they make mountains of money based off of no gameplay improvements whatsoever to speak of. So, but this guy, Gabe, this is the guy who went from project to project, creating and innovating new ideas that nobody had thought about in adding to games before. So in just this one particular realm, this is huge. Shadow Realms, he had a deep core, brilliant idea behind this. He had a lot of experience with probably the worst thing that he ever worked on The worst thing that he ever worked on was probably the Warhammer MMO. There were some good ideas and good points to it, uh, and I know people on that team who said that this guy was he was pushing for them to evolve and pushing for them to create good content, pushing for them to create good systems, and he was given very little power to actually do anything, and he called all of the problems before they happened. So forward thinker. So that's a good thing. It means that he was while he was on the team that created a garbage trash MMO, he was also the person on the team who had called all of those problems before they arrived and who was trying to create change to avoid those problems at the same time.
Right.
So kudos. We don't look at every failure of a game and say everybody on that team was an idiot. No, there's lots of people on those teams that knew the bad stuff and were trying to fix it, but never got the go ahead, never got the approval. People didn't listen to them, whatever. So what we have here from his background, from what I've been able to pull together from talking to a ton of people, checking out checking out his entire work history, which is all pretty available, we can see that this guy is a forward thinker, thinks outside the box, works on projects that attempts to change the game, change the way that people game, increase and alter the things that people have. He worked very recently. Um, he was working on a game called Breach that had entered early access and then summarily closed down. This was really sad, but it was basically that they didn't have the money and they didn't really have the tech and they didn't have the support that they wanted to. They created a really good idea, really good system. I did a lot of investigating into that game, and it had a lot of potential. They just didn't have the budget for it, and they didn't have the engine that they wanted, and they had a lot of limitations, and they just didn't have the financing and the money behind it, and so the game unfortunately closed down. But the concepts and the ideas were really good, and I saw where they were kind of trying to take it, and it was pretty brilliant. And if he had, I don't know, say a giant company working on a giant IP that is about to have an enormous amount of success, and if this guy is the guy that's going to be in charge, we're going to see stuff that we have not seen in games before. We are going to see a meeting together of a tabletop experience with an online game experience that we got a taste of with SWOTOR, that never followed through on that concept, that never really made it like as good as it could have been, as good as it had the potential to be, that never improved upon that system. This is the guy who created that system, who was asking and begging for it to be improved upon, and was told flat out, no, you can't do that. Money is good enough. Like that system, headache as it is, he wanted to improve it, and he had ideas to improve it. And now we're seeing that this is the guy who's in charge of the creative direction behind the multiplayer game. That's the way it's currently set up right now.
The
whether
Cyberpunk.
or not,
Yeah. Just to
Cyberpunk
answer common pants question here, what studio did the guy we're talking about go to? He is now working at CD Projekt Red Wrocław. I wonder if I got that pronunciation right. He is creative director for the Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer game.
Mm-hmm. So this is the multiplayer version of Cyberpunk that we're going to be getting post Cyberpunk release, and this is why we're talking about him, and this is why it's so exciting. We have here a guy who knows what he's been doing, who's been on the forefront of leading tech, of leading video games, and trying to push in systems that are really, really solid. And his connections are pretty wide, and he is close friends with the now VP studio head of Archetype Entertainment. This is a company we've talked about several times before. This is a company where they're all of the Bioware lead devs that left, and not all of them, but a good chunk of them, and they are constantly hiring more and more and more people from old school Bioware, and they're bringing them in. And this is a guy who they have very close connections with. So I think what we're seeing here And again, I quick history lesson for you for those who don't know. Old school Bioware had a very close connection, had a mentoring relationship with CD Projekt Red when they first started the very first Witcher game, and they had a very close relationship. And a lot of those old core developers passed on a lot of knowledge and a lot of training to who is now basically running the studio at CDPR. So old school Bioware, which is now the highest concentration of old school Bioware devs, are now at this company called Archetype Entertainment, and they have a pretty good system going with Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast has been having some issues, but they have found the greatest success in being hands off with stuff, and I think that's hopefully starting to get through to them. I really hope it is. They've done some really boneheaded, dumb decisions in the past few years. Not wanting to or not desiring to have the ability to give players an actual like virtual tabletop experience, online experience to share with their friends. The fact that the most tools that are used for DMs who have online tabletop experience games, meaning that they meet in Discord and they play, virtually, that the vast majority of those tools have been created by community members, not Wizards of the Coast, who actually own the darn thing, is kind of it's kind of stupid as far as like Wizards of the Coast goes. They should have been outsourcing this stuff. They should be contacting these people and say, hey, let's make an actual system, because then if not, you're just leaving money on the table like an idiot. So it's like, yeah, it's a terrible, terrible concept. But for the most part, what we're seeing here is a generalized, really good improvement to the way that they're approaching content in general. So, and that is being fairly hands off, getting developers, getting companies, getting studios that know what they're doing, that's filled with people who want to make great games, and saying, all right, you do you, we're just going to be over here, and please, corporate leadership, this is how you run a company. You find good people who can run companies, and you say, go over there, do what you want, and we'll come and check up and see if you need anything else. Like that's that. If you want to create art, that's what you do. That's the stance that Microsoft has taken, and hopefully this is the stance that Wizards of the Coast continue to do. But Archetype Entertainment, um, I believe it's James Holan. I hope I'm saying that name right. Is the VP of the studio head, and this is the guy who is absolutely excited to see what content Gabe is working on. And again, old school Bioware, this is great stuff. So let me, Moontag, you got a thingy, and then we'll kind
Yeah.
of go into some speculation here.
Okay. From Polly's here. Is it safe to assume that 2077 will be set Night City, so they're going to reuse the same map? Do you think they'll do GTA 5 style BS set before events of 2077? That's
I
a good
don't think
question.
it's safe to assume anything, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I, I, I mean, I'll let Side chime in on this, but I mean, we just don't know at this point. I don't know that it's safe to assume anything about the design of the multiplayer game.
No, we're not going to assume anything, because what we have here, who's running the show, is a maverick, is a brilliant maverick who is going to try to do something that you haven't seen before, that you haven't played before. I can, based off of his set of skills, though, there's some safe assumptions we can make, and so here's where the speculation comes in. We we can cross reference this with the desire that CDPR had. CDPR, in their original press release about Cyberpunk, and some of the early interviews, things that happened like 5-6 years ago, was that they were looking to create a game that could be easy, that you could literally take your character sheet within the game, print it out, and then use that character sheet to do a pen and paper experience. That was their original plan. That plan has changed somewhat. You're no longer able to print off your character sheet. More of the game is now based around a first person perspective shooter experience and less around the what you would normally typically call a tabletop experience, which we can look at and point at uh, Baldur's Gate 3 and I keep butchering the name of this game, Solasta, Crown of the Magister. You can take those kind of games and kind of say that that's kind of more of what you would get in a tabletop experience. It's less that and it's more shooter. It's still RPG first, and they're still telling a narrative, a story that's really good, and it's going to be fantastic. I don't doubt that the move from a third person, more tactical game, I still prefer that style of game, but I don't doubt that CDPR is going to do a good job with what they're doing. I don't doubt that for the majority of gamers, playing through the game in a first person perspective is going to be the superior way of seeing that emotion, of seeing those people, of seeing those players, of interacting with the world and seeing that story come to life. I, however, have to deal with motion sickness and I am also autistic. I don't like maintaining eye contact, which is another reason why I don't want a first person game. I don't want to see a person staring at me when I'm looking at the screen, especially because they've been managed to get out of that uncanny valley thing. Again, great, awesome. Most gamers going to love this. I really feel that this is just not, it's not just an advancement for video games. This is an advancement for robot tech. Which is coming, and we're going to see some really really cool stuff with this, but I myself can't stand looking at somebody in the eye. So this is going to be an incredibly uncomfortable game for me to play until we can get a third person perspective mod in there. And I've tried to be as honest as I could with that. I don't doubt that they have an award winning concept here with the third person perspective stuff. I just don't like it myself, and I don't feel bad or want to harp on anybody who enjoys the game in its first person perspective method, because again, I never wanted them to switch to a permanent third person perspective. I just want both options to be available. That's all I want. I just want both options. And I think there's room for that as a generalized experience. I think it's fine.
You just need
So
a
whatever.
mod, Cyb. You just need a mod where it puts helmets on every character.
Yeah, just
And then you'll be
one of the best things about this whole situation where everybody's wearing masks and staying physically distant is that it's like, oh, mean I don't have to be forced to touch people and shake hands and stand very close to people and listen to what they're saying by looking them straight in the face. I can now put on a mask and step away from them. Wow, this is the most comfortable I've been in society since ever. So anyway,
yeah. All right. Yeah.
yeah. So at any rate, what we have here, we have the direction that they've been wanting to go with this for the multiplayer, which is going to be an incorporated experience with players and teammates. They wanted a seamless world where people can drop in and out, form up meetings, have social hubs. These are all things that we know that they were wanting to do that has now been moved over to the multiplayer version. That's what they wanted. And what they've hired here in Gabe is they've hired a guy who has specialized in this kind of concept and constantly pushed the evolution of this idea and how to implement this stuff in the game. So we can make a couple of big statements here. Is this going to follow a kind of a Borderlands-ish type experience of multiplayer? Absolutely not. We're going to have a multiplayer that's built around the idea and concept of story and playing to the biggest, strongest feature of Cyberpunk 2077, which is the story, which is the role play, which is the world as a whole. And what we're going to be seeing from the direction of what the studio had originally wanted to the person that they've hired for this is somebody who specializes in this. So I think we're going to see multiplayer events and a world that is designed to be role played in from both the player and the player's avatar's perspective within said world. And that it is going to actively encourage this, and probably is going to give the option to stay in character as much as possible. We've seen the success that these kinds of systems have in Arma, and in some of there's a couple of servers or server locales or types within Grand Theft Auto that also do this. Um, and people will get in, they'll play the game for months and never break character. And I think that's pretty brilliant, and I believe that this is a system that they're going to try to be as open towards as possible. Because I think if they can manage to do this right, add kind of like a game, like gamify it in a proper way, I honestly expect that we're going to see a game that people are going to show up and roleplay within, and they're going to roleplay within it, attached to the official roleplay story of the world, of the universe, of all of the major characters that we have. And I think by doing this, that they'll set themselves up for massive success with a possible TV show, which has been rumored, or rumors are going wild right now about that, as well as some other concepts that would really make a lot of sense and would make a lot of money for said people.
All right. Rensten says, they say Gabe, I think Newell. Yes, I know. We are not talking about Gaben, though. We are talking about Gabe Amatangelo. So maybe we should call him Gabe A. Creative director for the Cyberpunk 2077 multiplayer project. Hello, Funky. Nice to see you. All right. Anything more outside of that? Do we know anything else about the multiplayer project?
For now, nothing else from that.
Yeah.
This is basically what we have. Like, we have speculation, and we've speculated on this before. We had a lot of early leaks and information about the first iteration of the game, which had incorporated both of these seamlessly together throughout the entire game. That got scrapped, and I can't. It doesn't mean that the info was wrong. It means that they said, you know what, we need to focus on a single player, then we're going to do multiplayer afterwards. So we can expect that a lot of their original desires are still clearly there.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's all we have to say about the multiplayer for Cyberpunk 2077. Just one other quick thing we wanted to discuss, because it was posted in the content requests channel on our Discord server. You may not have heard of Embracer Group, but they are formerly known as THQ Nordic AB. Not to be confused with THQ Nordic SMBH, or sorry, GmbH, which is one of their subsidiaries, which is still called that. Anyway, THQ Nordic, the overarching company, changed its name to Embracer Group to avoid confusion with its subsidiary company, THQ Nordic. Anyway, it's got 5 other subsidiaries as well, and they've been buying up a lot of game studios recently. This has caught some attention. I mean, it's going very underreported, or at least, or maybe underreported is the wrong word, but it's not gotten a ton of press. But a few people have noticed recently, hey, these people are buying up a lot of studios. So what's going on there, Side?
This is more or less an investor group with a guy who's really into gaming, who kind of sees that it was a good way to invest money in. He's managed to get a good way of investing, of identifying companies that can make good games. These aren't AAA. There are some AAA game studios, I think, that they're starting to get more and more interconnected with, but a lot of their stuff was like smaller developers, single A, double A kind of stuff. A lot of like micro games, a lot of mobile games, and they were just buying up assets everywhere and keeping a fairly clean structure of leadership, where it's like, hey, we're investing in you. We're not here to ruin your game, tell you what to do, anything like that. We're here to give you basic investments, basically to be your bank. So you apply for a loan, you pitch us what your concept is. Because we're game enthusiasts, we understand what you're going for. We look at it, say, yep, that's a pretty decent investment. We're going to invest in it. Sometimes they don't recover all the investments that they got from that one studio, but because they're investing in so many studios all at once, everybody's paying that, what they're making back into the system. Everybody has more jobs. It's a really good way of doing it because and this is the way that Microsoft has now been adopting their system, and Microsoft has been capturing and not capturing. They've been capturing sort of. They've been buying up studios left, right, and center too, and they're investing in them as a whole, saying that yes, not every project is going to be a super success, but nobody needs to fear about losing their job so long as they did their job good. And we know that if we continue to do this, we will have some games that will end up becoming the next big thing. And by doing this, we're spreading out the chance of success between everybody, and then also giving everybody a system in which, as long as they're continuing to make good products, individual success not as important as the overarching success of all of the studios working as essentially at the same time. Because again, you don't know what the next big game is going to be. Period. Even when you kind of have an idea, suddenly you get Fortnite, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, this is the greatest thing ever!" And then what's the next biggest game that shows up? Fall Guys, which is quickly replaced by a 2-year-old game that had basically no players on it called Among Us. And suddenly these games are taking off, and you just can't figure out which one it's going to be. You can't figure out what genre it's going to be. You can't assume anything about anything. It's so random. 2-3 months from now, we might have another top game. It might be an older game. We saw how we especially saw this with Warcraft Classic. Classic came out and destroyed the Twitter or sorry the Twitch charts for months on end. It created a new list of top game streamers, and it's constantly doing this. We're constantly getting this world where everything's evolving. So this is what this company has been, basically what they've been excelling at, is going around and saying, hey, we're going to get this, we're going to get that, we're going to be investing in this company, we're going to be investing in that company. We don't know which one's going to be the next big thing. We don't know if any of them will be the next big thing, or if all of them will just make enough money to keep paying the bills. That's essentially the process that they've adopted. But by adopting this, they are continually making a good investment on their money. As far as I know, and I've looked into this as extensively as I can, they have in their leadership core, they don't have anybody who has a track record. Not to say that they don't have, but nobody who has a strong track record of being a highly creative type in wanting to create and design massive worlds for people to turn into massive, expansive projects. So that's kind of the thing where, like, are these people going to go out and create a brand new mega game intentionally? And I think the answer to that is no, because I don't think they have the skills or the desire to. Not to say that they don't have creative people that work for them. They're funding creative people all the time. But I don't think any of the core investor team has a story, has a universe, has a world, has an IP that they're desperate to get out, like I have with my book, or like how some of the people that have left Blizzard recently have with the new companies that they're starting up. Everything, which we've been talking about nonstop. There's been 3 major companies that have basically sprung up out of people that have left Blizzard because they're tired. They were tired of dealing with the red tape and the control and the insidious involvement of Activision, which has been stifling their creative ability for years now. These people clearly still had a passion, and then as soon as they could, they created these new companies. I haven't seen anybody who's in that kind of a category who's working at the upper echelons of this, but they have certainly been involving it with it.
All right.
Did I lose myself again, or did I get cut
No,
off?
we're all good here. We're all good. There haven't been any audio glitches
Okay.
since the beginning. But
Yeah.
if you're out there and you haven't slammed that like button yet, please do slam the like button. Really appreciate that. Tells YouTube that you appreciate this content. Tells us that you appreciate this content. Unless there's anything else to say, Moon or Side.
You get this answer. Someone's asking. I think it's Funky was asking, where did Gabe work before? What was his work before? So Gabe was in university, and he got in as an intern for New Line Cinema. I don't know if you've heard of this company before. New Line Cinema. Where did we hear of this company before? I thought they made a series called
Pretty big trilogy back in the day.
yeah, big trilogy back in the day. Really connected with something called Lord of the
Yeah.
what was it? Lord of the Amulet.
Yeah. We know.
Lord of
We
the
get
Amulet.
it. We get it.
Yeah, we get it. So Lord of the Rings was put out in 2001, and Gabe worked there in the 2000s. So he was on the ground floor as an intern, so nothing super big, but he was on the ground floor in the Los Angeles studio, or in the Los Angeles side of things, when the height of the production was going on for Lord of the Rings. So that's his first thing. He did another internship at a different studio. Then he did some trainee work at a talent agency. Did that for like 2 years. Then he worked in as a creative producer and co-founder at another company that he kind of helped create. This led into him getting a job at Mythic Entertainment. This was early EA, so we're talking about like 2005 to 2010. So we spent about 5 years there climbing the ladder there. Started as a content designer, then a content design lead, then an expansion team lead, then as a lead designer, moving from project to project to project. Then he kind of transitioned over to a creative director at EA, and he got in at Bioware, where he worked for a little over 5 years, working as a lead designer, lead dungeon and PvP designer, creative director, and design director. Left that, created his own company, I believe, called QC Games. QC Games, unfortunately, went belly up after about 3 years, but the content that they were creating was cyberpunk in its design, multiplayer focused, and very, very, very open. This is a type of game where you could have tens of thousands of distinct builds, very, very deep progression paths for your character, really resulting in thousands and thousands of unique builds and stuff. And he did that right up until December of 2019. April 2019. He did some self-employment work for a little bit, for a couple of months, while he waited. No doubt, I would say, kind of waited for things to settle down there at the company that he left. And that is when he popped over in January of this year to be the creative lead for the MMO, or for the online. We don't know if it's an MMO, for the online project for Cyberpunk 2077. He hopped over. We don't know when that upgrade was made. We don't know if he was brought in specifically for that role, or if he came in, started working on stuff, helping them with the base game, and then basically was able to pitch his way into that position, or if he was hired into that position right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Sorry, I totally forgot to give his full list background, but that is his full list background from coming out of college. The man also has a beautiful, beautiful goatee. Just a gorgeous, thick, full, amazing goatee that is a couple inches long. Great fellow. I am somewhat positive I've met him before, but I'm pretty, like, passively, not like not like we hung out, just like met him in a building at one point. I suspect though that, or not, I suspect, I know that I know several people that he's worked very closely with. But again, I can't. His face is extremely familiar, and I'm like, I think I talked to the guy at like it could have been at a convention or something like that. I'm not positive. It's been a long time, but yeah, he's now over in Poland working in the major studio as the creative director for the main multiplayer project. So great news, and I really hope that he nails this, and I hope that every vision that he has for what he wants to create comes out as live, because this is going to be very, very, very interesting. I have already sent off oh wait, I shouldn't say that, never mind.
Okay, well, once again, we are talking about Gabe Amatangelo, not Gabe Newell.
Different,
you say
different game.
You say Gabe with no last name, people just assume you're talking about Gabe Newell.
Yes, yeah, no. Gabe Newell is a essential. I'm pretty sure he's a billionaire, and he's launching garden gnomes into space. That's been a recent project that Gabe from Steam has done.
Gabe,
don't know why he decided to do that. I think it was some kind of like meme from a video game achievement or something like that.
I think billionaires get bored.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he got bored because he just launched a garden gnome into space, where he's doing it in the next few days. One of the two. Good Lord. Imagine that. Imagine that. You're an alien species flying through deep space in 20, 30,000 years from now. And you come across, Captain, there's something on the radar. All right, scoop it up as we fly past it. And they bring it on board, and it's a small short. It's like a foot tall, and he's wearing this really ridiculous hat and this really bright clothes, and you're like, well, what does this signify? And then they're like, oh, there must be like some culture of like maybe this is a body of a species that died off, and this is how their bodies
ceramic life forms.
Yeah, and and so some point in the future we might have a species that is now adopting the idea of garden gnomes. Where does he get the time?
Where does he get the We are talking about a guy who's got billions of dollars. I mean, he's probably got more time than
hilarious though, like really, honestly, truly hilarious.
All right, I think we'll wrap up the show there, unless there's any final thoughts. But I think we've covered it. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for all of the excellent conversation in the live chat, for supporting the show by listening live or after the fact. Don't forget to slam that like button. We really appreciate that. Check out the Discord server. Check out the merch store. All the links are in the description below. Really appreciate all of that. I want to thank our Patreon supporters and channel members who help to make this content possible. Robin, Shua82, Time Bean, Schoolman, Lady Reaver, Dreco Den, Niv, Too Tall 12, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, and Terror K. And, of course, our two anonymous supporters at the Big Damn Hero level on Patreon. Appreciate all of you folks. And you're enabling us to do more than we have been able to before. Really appreciate it. All right.
We're going to be trying to open a P.O. box in the next couple of weeks. So if you guys have things that you want to send us, be prepared be prepared to have that opportunity.
I wonder what kinds of things you're thinking of. Anyway.
Probably giant pink or purple things that are long and cylindrical.
Let's okay, let's all right, the Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, tons more quality gaming content. Special video coming out Monday. Check it out. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyb and Moontag, thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very soon.